For being absent at the last meeting of the committee that was held last week. It's not in my nature, and I do take the issue of security very, very seriously. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Senate. Particularly, the purpose of this meeting is to interact with the Minister of Finance, particularly, and the other armed forces agency, particularly the CDS and the COAS. And the reason is because of the serious security challenges we are faced in this country at this time that is spreading like a cancer. We call this meeting to interact and to find out what are the problems, what are the immediate solutions, or the intermediate solution and the long term. The last time we invited you, Honorable Minister, you were not able to honor our invitation, and you could see that, or you heard that the Senate was really angry. I am particularly and personally, I was angry. But you explained, after your explanation, I think I can, on behalf of my colleagues, accept your apology. As we said last time, the invitation was not personal. It is more for the problem that we are faced with, that everybody is worried about. And this is the most critical thing to do, because security and welfare of the citizens is clearly stated in the Constitution as the main purpose why government exists. And according to Maslow's theory of needs, the first and most important need of a human being is his security. And all of us agree that never in the history of this country have Nigeria as a country be challenged with security threats from various angles like this time. It has gotten so bad that in a country of ours, citizens have resorted to negotiating with criminals in order to live in peace. In Shiroro, the residents of that local government have entered into negotiation with criminals to allow them exist. In Nigeria, of today, we are having government within government. And all this is because of security. In the southeast, or in the east generally, because even south-south, the Eastern Security Network has taken over the security of that area, molesting everybody at their will and doing whatever they want. And our armed forces are overwhelmed, not because they don't have the capacity or the ability, but they don't have what it takes to do the job. No matter how good a farmer is, if he doesn't have implement, he cannot cultivate enough for him to even survive on, talk less of making a living out of it. And that's why we invited you, most importantly because we are having conflicting reports and figures. When we confront the Nigerian army, why are you not performing? They will tell us we don't have money, we only manage with what we have. So that's why we invited you to say, what's going on? I interacted personally with Mr. President on the issue of security because I come from the epicenter of the crisis, where insurgency have been bedeviled us for the past 11 years, unabated. By the time Nigerian army puts its effort, and then it comes up again. Unfortunately, now the problem of the security challenge have expanded to other parts of the country. The Northwest, the banditry there, it started with individual kidnapping, but now it has, expanded to massive or mass abduction of children, particularly in school. We remember the Greenfield University in Kaduna. Up to now, I think there's 17 or so of 17 of them. They are even threatening that they will be killed today. God forbid. The students abducted from a College of Forestry somewhere in Kaduna are still in captivity. So on, so on. The list can go endlessly. If you go to Southeast, as I said, the criminals are burning down police formations. Prisons have been vandalized. And recently, South, Akwa Ibom, so many police have been killed. Even last week, the INEC office in Akwa Ibom was raised. Yesterday, was raised down. Back to my base, my own village, Goza, which used at one time to be the headquarters of the caliphate, so-called. We are getting used to Boko Haram attack because we vowed that we cannot go anywhere again with the experience that we had, where we had to run away in 2014, thinking that the problem is just for a day or two or 1 week. And we have been displaced now for, this is running to 6 to 7 years. We are scattered all over the country. And those that were strong enough to go back cannot sleep comfortably. I interact with the armed forces very regularly. I have the insight. It is so bad that the Nigerian army are rationing ammunition. Rationing food is common, it's usual. But armed ammunition, they ration ammunition. And I can be quoted. I have gone round the formations. I have not seen a Nigerian soldier holding a brand new AK-47 yet. And I can understand why they cannot do that. In a budget of 13 trillion, and you are allocating less than 30 billion, as I said, I can be quoted. Up to now, when I go around, the only place I've seen army holding new AK-47 is in Abuja. And that is necessary because that is the image of Nigeria. But outside there, the Nigerian army are managing with very old AK-47s. So this meeting is very, very critical. This remark is what I can say now on the surface. After this remark, we will decide, the committee, my colleagues will decide on whether to continue with it in an open session like this, or in a closed, or in camera, as you call it, depending on what we think is better. But I am hoping, and Nigerians are looking forward, surprisingly, to this meeting, thinking that something will really come out of it. in terms of addressing the financial challenges the Nigerian army are faced with. My position has not changed, even though it's personal, but I believe so many Nigerians are with us on this. If you look at our military spending and what we are faced with, then you know that this country have not started yet to seriously and squarely address the issue of security. Let us look at this thing, Hajia, very critically before it's too late. Because the way things are going, God forbid, but the way things are going, if it continues like this, so they may know, Nigeria may be in a very chaotic situation that you can't call it a country anymore, God forbid. But we can do it, and this thing can be done within the shortest possible time. So having said that, my colleagues will go into the real session for this meeting. As I said, the purpose is to look at how much has been given to the army, how much are they supposed to be given, when are they going to be given, how are they going to be given this money, so that the issue, the outcry of financial crisis that the armed forces are faced with will now be closed.
Because this very sensitive issue of financing the security sector within our country. In the Ministry of Finance, Budget and National Plan, indeed, the President prioritizes funding for the armed forces of Nigeria. Apart from the fact that we try best efforts to fund what is provided for in the budget almost 100%, there has been also a lot of instances when the security services go to the President, get a special approval, and we still provide the funds. So perhaps what we are providing is not enough, but the fact is we provide what is budgeted and we provide what is approved. So maybe the thing to do in the later meeting is to take stock of the real needs of the Nigerian army. We have an opportunity in a supplementary budget that is coming on, so we can address some of that. But if you will permit me, I'll just present very quickly and at high level some of the information that we have put together regarding financing of the Nigerian army. And I'm starting with funding of the Nigerian army, capital funding for the Nigerian army. In 2019, what was budgeted for the Nigerian army was 19.6 billion, and 12.84 billion of that was released, representing 64.37%. In 2020,
Please, colleagues, that is on A. If you
yes,
look at,
I'm speaking to Schedule A, just the front page.
you refer to A.
So,
okay,
yeah,
go ahead.
Appendix A. And then in 2020, the total capital budget for the armed force for the Nigerian army was 34.37 billion, and this amount was released 100%. In 2021, that is this current year, the total budget for the Nigerian army is 29 billion, and so far, and we're in May, and this is as at April, we have released 17.98% of that, which is 61.92%. So it means we're on course to also release 100%. I would like to just report briefly on, so also if you look at the same Appendix A, there were some outside of budget spending because the need was higher than what was provided for in the budget, and there was a total provision of 64.5 billion for procurement of military equipment that was provided from through special approval of Mr. President. And we have the details of this that are attached to this grand summaries. And in terms of overhead cost, in 2019, what was budgeted as overhead for the Nigerian army, it was 15.64 billion, out of which we released 14.299 billion, representing 91.01%. In 2020, what was budgeted was 20.634 billion, and out of this we released...
Sorry, Minister, we are lost.
Also, I moved to B, because you said you didn't want to go through details.
Can refer us to the document so that we will follow you.
So I'm now on B, which is details of overhead costs
Yes,
releases
B,
to the Nigerian
distinguished
Army.
colleagues, B.
Appendix B. So
Go ahead.
for 2019, of the 15.64 billion, 14.22 billion was released, representing 91.01%. And 2020, of the 20.634 billion, 20.471 billion was released, representing 99.21%. In 2021, that is the current year, the total budget for the year is 20.63 billion. And 3 months releases that we've done so far on overhead, totaling 4.99 billion, representing 96.75% of the prorated budget for the 3 months, because the year is still running. I'd like to move to items, Appendix C. Yes, Appendix C is the personnel cost, the Nigerian Army personnel cost. In 2019, what was budgeted as personnel cost for the Nigerian Army was 192.155 billion. But because of the adjustment that we had to make for the minimum wage, the spending, the releases, was 122.91% over the budget at 237.42 billion. And apart from the releases that were directly done in the budget by adjustment for the minimum wage, there was also an additional release of 45.195 billion from the public service-wide adjustment, also meant to be augmentation of salaries due to the shortfall in the budget. Remember, in 2019, when the budget was passed, the consequential adjustment negotiations were not concluded. So we have had to make those adjustments. So the total releases to the Nigerian Army was 282.61 billion, representing 146% over what was initially planned in the budget. In the year 2020, what was budgeted for overhead was 408.39 billion, and out of that we have released 399.18 billion, representing 97.74% of the budget. And in 2020, we're on course with total release now averaging 96.64% of the 4 months that we've already funded the Nigerian Army. If I may move to Schedule D, Appendix D, details of releases to the Nigerian Army from service-wide votes from January 2019 to April 2021. The first part of it, the year 2019, for Operation Lafia Dole, what was budgeted was 75 billion, but we ended up having to release up to 82.61 billion. Having released the 75 billion in the budget, there was an augmentation from service-wide special intervention of 7.61 billion. So this represents about 110% over the budget. Then I have in that same schedule a breakdown of the components of Operation Lafia Dole. The Nigerian Army, of the 82.619 billion, Nigerian Army got a component of 35.61 billion, representing 40%, while the Defense Headquarters got 25%, and the Nigerian Air Force got 21%. Then below this breakdown for Operation Lafia Dole is details of some of the extra budgetary funding that Mr. President gave special approvals for, and there's a total of 12.422 billion, which was also fully funded and released to the Nigerian Armed Forces. There was also a special provision for Operation Hadar and Daji and Thunder Strike, Operation Thunder Strike. A specific request that was made by the Ministry of 2.54 billion was released on the approval of His Excellency, the President. In the year 2020, for Operation Lafia Dole, what was in the budget was 75 billion naira, and 74.99 billion naira was released in 2020. So that means also 100% releases. We have just below that a breakdown of the makeup of the 74.99 billion, still showing that the Nigerian Army benefited 46% at 34.64 billion of the 75 billion that was expended for Operation Lafia Dole. In the year 2020 for Operation Lafia Dole, what we have done so far is to pay for 2 quarters, because we pay the quarters in advance, 19.79 billion for each quarter. So we have we released so far 39.72% for quarter 1 and quarter 2 on Operation Lafia Dole. Just to explain, when you look at the details, you find that the request is made through the Ministry of Defense by the Defense headquarters, and they detail out how each of these funds is going to be used. So it's initiated by the ministry, by the defense. It goes to the president. He approves. We release what is based on what is approved. We don't have any view of the actual utilization of this. What we are doing is releasing the funds. Also in 2021, at the last page of Appendix C, you see the details of the summary of the breakdown of this 39.7 billion cutting across the Ministry of Defense, Defense Headquarters, Nigerian Army, Navy, Air Force, and the Defense Intelligence Agency. Again, the emphasis, if I may move on to Appendix D. D. Yeah. Appendix D is details of releases to the Nigerian Army from service-wide vote for January 2019 to April 2020. So that's the same appendix that I just finished. So after those appendices, we have details of each of these line expenditures, including the warrants, and in some cases, the requests and the approvals are attached. So that is something we can go through later. The point I just want to emphasize is that the Ministry of Finance, Budget and Planning has been responsible and responsive to providing funds for the Nigerian Army. We are limited, of course, by the fiscal space that is currently available, and also by what is appropriated in the budget. We know, I have personally met with the Chief of Defense Staff and all the service chiefs, and I know that their need is very, very large, and not in the budget, and also not even the size of funds that we can approve, that we can afford to provide right now. So we need to all sit together and look at how we can rearrange the cost of governance so that we can shift emphasis on funding, because there are other sectors of the economy like health and education that are also, and social investment, that are also critical. So that's not something that we can decide on our own. It's something that has to be a collective effort, because whatever we remove from the other sectors to apply to security, the other sectors will also be affected. So I want to just say that I'm glad that this process is happening. Perhaps this will be the pathway towards relooking at how we fund the Nigerian Armed Forces, but also emphasizing that we have, from our view in the ministry, been funding near 100% all the requirements of the Nigerian Army. And I know that there are more, because I've seen additional requests, but we are limited in terms of what we are able to provide at any point in time. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Senate and the invited, when I'm talking about the invited guest, that is the Honorable Minister and the staff that you think are necessary for the closed session. So if there is any comment from the principal staff officers here that represent the armed forces, then you can indicate interest in saying something before we ask the cameramen out. But before that, I want to say to the cameramen too, that this meeting is supposed to hold with the CDS and the COAS also present. But because they called and requested that we should rearrange the meeting, because right now there is a Security Council meeting going on in the presidency, and we felt that the key person that we want here in order to reconcile or have effective interaction is the Minister of Finance and those that are dealing with the finance, the principal staff officers that are dealing with the finance. and all of us are here.
The service chiefs, please. You know the important